Level 1. Survival. This is the ground floor, and almost everyone starts here, whether they admit it or not. Survival is the level where your money has exactly one job: keep you breathing until the next paycheck. Rent, food, the electric bill, the bus fare to the job that pays the rent, the money arrives and leaves in the same breath, like it was only ever passing through on its way to someone else. There is no cushion here, only timing. A single surprise, a car repair, a hospital visit, a slow month, and the whole thing tips over. Roughly 6 in 10 people can't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing, which means the survival level isn't some rare rock bottom. It's the most crowded floor in the entire building. The cruel part is how much work it takes to stay exactly where you are. Survival isn't lazy. Survival is running at full speed on a treadmill that only ever shows you the same wall. Level 2, stability. Stability is the first time the water stops rising above your chin. You still work for every dollar, but now the dollars stop vanishing the instant they arrive. There's a small buffer, a few hundred saved, maybe a month of expenses tucked somewhere you've promised not to touch. The difference between survival and stability isn't income, it's breathing room. A flat tire becomes an annoyance instead of a catastrophe. You can say yes to dinner without doing quiet math under the table. It sounds modest, and it is, but stability is secretly one of the hardest jumps on this entire ladder, because it's the first level that asks you to spend less than you're allowed to. Most people never make this leap, not because they can't, but because the money they could save keeps getting spent on looking like they've already reached the next level. Stability is quiet, unglamorous, and almost nobody posts about it, which is probably why so few people chase it. Level 3. Security. Security is where the fear finally starts to loosen its grip. At this level, you're not just holding a 1-month buffer, you're holding 3, 6, maybe a full year of expenses, and you've started aiming money at the future on purpose. A retirement account exists. Debt is shrinking instead of growing. You could lose your job tomorrow and the sky wouldn't fall by Friday. This is the level where money stops being a source of pure anxiety and starts becoming a tool you actually get to hold. Financial planners love to talk about the emergency fund like it's a boring chore. But what it really buys is something far less boring: the ability to make decisions out of choice instead of panic. Security is the moment you stop being one bad week away from the survival floor. And once someone tastes that, going back feels less like a setback and more like a betrayal of everything they built. Level 4. Independence from the paycheck. Here's where things get interesting, because this is the level where your money quietly starts working a second job you never assigned it. Independence begins the moment your money starts earning money on its own. Investments, dividends, a rental, anything that generates income while you're asleep, on vacation, or simply not thinking about it. At the lower levels, you are the only engine. Every dollar you have comes from trading an hour of your life for it, 1 hour at a time, in a straight line that never curves upward on its own. Independence is where the line finally bends. It usually starts embarrassingly small, a few dollars of interest, a tiny dividend that wouldn't buy a coffee. But that trickle is the single most important shift on this entire ladder, because it's the first proof that wealth doesn't have to come exclusively from your own two hands. Compound growth doesn't check your job title before it starts working. It just needs to be let in the door. Level 5. Freedom. Freedom is the level most people are actually chasing when they say they want to be rich, even if they've never put it into words. It's the point where the income your money generates covers the cost of your life. Not your dream life necessarily, but your real one. The rent, the groceries, the bills, all paid by assets instead of hours. At this level, work becomes optional. You might keep doing it, plenty of people do, but the difference is that you're now choosing it instead of being sentenced to it. This is the exact line where money stops being something you chase and quietly becomes something that chases you. Studies of the wealthy consistently find that this is the psychological turning point. The moment financial stress stops being a daily weather system and becomes an occasional cloud. And here's the part nobody mentions. Crossing into freedom rarely requires a lottery-sized fortune. It mostly requires wanting less than you've been trained to want, which turns out to be the most expensive skill on earth to learn. Level 6. Wealth. Now we're above the line in the territory most people only ever see through a screen. Wealth is the level where the numbers grow faster than you could ever spend them, where the money isn't just covering your life, it's expanding on its own faster than you can find uses for it. Roughly 68% of the world's ultra-wealthy built this themselves, which means most of them once stood on the survival floor squinting up at a ceiling they couldn't see past. At this level, the concerns flip entirely. Lower down, the question is, how do I make more? Up here, the question quietly becomes, how do I not lose this? And how do I make it work harder? The wealthy tend to obsess less over income and more over ownership. Businesses, property, equity, the things that keep producing value long after the work is done. It's the difference between a salary that trades hours for dollars in a straight line and ownership that lets money and time work the night shift without you. Funnily enough, many of the people at this level still drive ordinary cars and wear plain clothes, because at a certain point, proving you're rich starts to feel like a strange waste of the very freedom you worked for. Level 7. Legacy. And finally, the level almost nobody reaches and the one that's the hardest to see from the outside. Legacy wealth isn't about you at all anymore. It's the level where the money has grown so far beyond a single lifetime that the entire question changes from how do I spend this to how do I pass this on without ruining the people who receive it. This is old money territory, dynasties, foundations, fortunes engineered to outlive their founders by a century. And here's the quiet irony that ends the whole ladder. Studies show a huge share of large inheritances are gone within a few years, because managing serious wealth turns out to be a skill. And skills, unlike money, don't get handed down automatically in the will. The families that actually stay at this level understand something the lower rungs never had to learn, that the hardest part of wealth was never building it. It was keeping it from quietly slipping back down every level you climbed to escape. So those are the 7 levels: survival, stability, security, independence, freedom, wealth, and legacy. Most people spend their entire lives moving between the first 2, convinced the ceiling above them is solid, when it's really just a floor somebody else is standing on. And yes, this video will absolutely generate comments from people insisting the levels don't work like this, which is fine, because the fastest way to find out which rung you're standing on is to watch which one you feel the need to defend. If you climbed even one level just by understanding the ladder, you know what to do. Please subscribe.